In the previous chapter, Lu Sheng jumped off the helicopter and saved his waifu number 1. He went into one-punch mode and killed the ugly centipede with a single punch. As we return to the story, the beast's remains and blood splattered everywhere, and the air still carried the terrible scent. Facing the sight of its fallen comrade, the giant gorilla creature froze, too confused about what just happened. Lu Sheng, now surrounded by flames, casually kicked the dirt with a smirk, locking eyes with the bewildered beast, telling the beast it's now his turn. The rip-off King Kong couldn't believe a puny human dared mock him. Enraged, its eyes turned crimson red, roaring towards Lu Sheng. With a swing of its massive fist, it sucked the air from the surroundings, but Lu Sheng blocked it effortlessly with a single hand. What was happening now felt like déjà vu from just a month ago, during the final round of the military star selection. However, the only difference is that last time, it was a level 5 beast. With a swift move, Lu Sheng grabbed the rip-off King Kong's arm and tossed it into the air. Confused, the beast found itself spinning while flying in the air. Lu Sheng lifted a leg, gazing at the beast as he delivered a powerful kick to its neck. In an instant, under everyone's gaze, almost like a soccer ball, the beast's head was severed and sent flying meters away. General Yu, mouth wide open, couldn't believe what he just witnessed. The same went for Qin, who was staring at Snowy, both of his hands trembling as he pointed at Lu Sheng. He wondered if they were filming a movie right now. "What the hell was that?" he yelled out. Meanwhile, wrapping her arms under her boing, Snowy was equally shocked, however. She let out a smile while murmuring to herself that Lu Sheng had become even more stronger. As the beast's head slammed onto the ground, Lu Sheng glanced back, smiling at the last remaining beast. Watching this terrifying human approaching, the mantis-like creature shrieked, its sharp scythe-like limbs hesitating to attack. In the next second, it bolted, sprinting away as fast as it could, perhaps wanting to get away from this terrifying human. In front of the beast was the massive cavern. Just as it thought it was safe, its body suddenly froze to the ground. Meanwhile, Lu Sheng extended a hand, his psychic power enveloping it. The mantis creature floated helplessly in the air, involuntarily pulled back by Lu Sheng. It kept looking back, unable to comprehend what was happening, its entire body struggling, trying to escape. Suddenly, crackling sounds emanated from its body. Then, it began to compress, its agonizing cries filling the air as it continued to shrink, until finally, with a deafening explosion, it vanished completely. With all the level 7 beasts gone, Lu Sheng didn't stop there. He leaped into the air, facing the other beasts emerging from the depth of the cavern. He had no plans of letting these beasts go back. He unleashed countless punches, so fast that it seemed like a blur, each blow landing like a cannonball on the lower-level beasts. Within moments, there was nothing left around the cavern except for the remnants of the beasts. After finishing everything off, he then joined everyone while approaching them with a grin. He jokingly saluted General Yu. "New recruit reporting to duty, sir." Everyone still couldn't believe what just happened, still in a daze, and more confused than ever. The fact that Lu Sheng, almost like a demon king just seconds ago, is now calling himself a new recruit. Someone let out a soft chuckle, and shortly after, the joke eased the tension, and laughter erupted. As night fell, they returned to the Eastern Military District base. Qin handed Lu Sheng a hot beverage, thanking him for making it on time. Without him, they wouldn't have stood a chance of facing all 3 level 7 beasts, potentially endangering the entire front line. Taking a sip, Lu Sheng waved it off and said it was nothing while turning to Qin. Curious, he asked, "Is the A-rank cavern really this dangerous?" He didn't expect level 7 beasts to appear so close at the entrance. Snowy, who had been standing nearby, spoke up for the first time, telling him that this isn't just an A-level cavern, rather it's a AAA level or higher. Typically, when a new cavern rift appears, there's a period we're called the breakout period. During this time, there might be high-level beasts. She then followed up saying it would gradually stabilize afterwards. At the same time, General Yu entered the tent, laughing heartily. He said he couldn't quite believe it when he heard Lu Sheng took down that great grandmaster from the Jidao Martial School. But seeing what happened today, it seems the rumors were true. He then mentioned that Lu Sheng now had the strength to climb the general star ranking, maybe even reaching the top 50 without breaking a sweat. This was new to him. He wondered if the general star ranking was similar to the senior rankings in universities. General Yu walked in while nodding, explained that the general star ranking isn't just about strength. It also considers achievements and contributions. General Yu will tally up all of the beasts that Lu Sheng had killed today as contributions. This way, he can exchange them for resources from the military, which will aid him in his future training. Lu Sheng nodded gratefully. General Yu seemed tired and had a lot on his hands, however. He still wanted to make time to greet Lu Sheng. He wanted to leave the room to the young folks while telling Lu Sheng to rest well. Then he followed up by cautioning him that the battle wasn't over, and there might be more breakouts, and anything could happen at any moment within the next 2 weeks. With a smile, he joked that since Lu Sheng was here, he could put him to work. Lu Sheng nodded lightly. Watching him leave, he could clearly sense General Yu's exhaustion, both mentally and physically. To tire out a 7th-level Grandmaster in his prime showed just how intense the recent battles had been. Lu Sheng had his immortal cells and nature's breathing technique, granting him almost limitless stamina. Thus, he never felt tired or exhausted. Rubbing his own belly, although he doesn't get tired, he still gets hungry though. Qin caught on to Lu Sheng's thoughts. He chuckled and patted Lu Sheng's shoulder, knowing too well that Lu Sheng had quite the appetite. Today, he was prepared to treat him well. Moments later, Lu Sheng looked at the table full of canned food and wasn't overly excited. Was this Qin's idea of a treat? Qin felt a bit helpless. He shrugged and explained that after all, they were on the frontline battlefield, limited in what they could offer. However, he promised to treat Lu Sheng to a proper meal once the battle was over. Across the table, Snowy picked up her fork, her gaze constantly drifting towards Lu Sheng. Sitting silently beside him, Snowy didn't speak. Wasn't really sure what she was up to. However, Lu Sheng caught her gaze and their eyes soon met. Snowy blushed, and even more rare, our boy also blushed slightly. It was a bit awkward, especially considering he had seen Snowy always end up in his future spouse section in the dream realm, ever since their first encounter, which made things a bit awkward between the two. However, Lu Sheng's focus was more on martial arts, and he couldn't let women distract him. Quickly finishing his food in one big gulp, stood up and left, leaving Qin puzzled. However, Qin found it odd that since Lu Sheng's return, Snowy hadn't spoken to him. Yet when she heard about the retaliation against Lu Sheng by the Jidao Martial School, she was frantic, almost wanting to rush to Lu Sheng's side. Now that he was right in front of her, they didn't exchange a word. Snowy kept her head down, taking another bite with her fork, completely ignoring Qin. However, she muttered, telling Qin that it was none of his business. Qin stared at her for a while, then suddenly seemed to realize something, muttering to himself, "Oh my goodness, Snowy. Could it be that you like Lu?" Before he could finish, Snowy hit him in the face with a plate and stormed off. Qin wasn't angry. Instead, he was more surprised, as if he had stumbled upon something. Instead of returning to his tent, Lu Sheng took a stroll around the campsite, gazing at the gloomy sky. It reminded him of the day's battle, and his blood still boiled with adrenaline. He doubted he could fall asleep and enter the dream realm tonight. However, the sounds of gunfire and skirmishes continued outside. The onslaught of beasts wasn't as strong as it had been in the morning, and their division seemed to handle it with ease. Releasing his psychic power, Lu Sheng expanded his senses, acutely aware of everything happening around him. He looked into the distance and thought, maybe I should go check it out. Meanwhile, at the front lines, the relentless bombardment of artillery and gunfire against the massive hordes of beasts continues, and though ineffective in causing any real damage, this granted the martial artists more valuable time. Damn it! Why are there so many? A soldier spat out in frustration, brandishing his assault rifle. Beside him, an injured comrade lay sprawled on the ground, his arm wrapped in thick bandages, a medic attending to a fresh wound on his leg. Gritting his teeth against the pain, he wondered when they would be getting reinforcements. However, everyone knew that under the current dire circumstances, it was unlikely anyone could spare resources to help them. Suddenly, a giant axe struck the ground, drawing all of their attention. A muscular woman urged them not to lose heart. After all, they had come to the battlefield prepared for such outcomes, and should keep fighting as long as they drew breath. The group quickly stood and saluted. Morale at the front lines began to rise. This was their division's Grandmaster, also a general star, and seeing her in the front lines alongside them made them less hopeless about the situation. Not long after, without warning, An explosion erupted not far from the trenches, a fierce purple light shooting up from the ground and instantly killing nearby soldiers. The woman quickly glanced aside and recognized the beast. A level 7 two-headed shadow leopard. Without giving her any time to react, the beast charged at her full speed, but she merely paused for a second before bursting into laughter, hoisting her giant axe while shouting, "Just in time to spice up the meal," as she clashed head-on with the level 7 beast. The two of them tangled fiercely, exchanging attacks after attacks. Despite the beast's swift movements, she quickly seized an opportunity, striking fiercely at the beast's neck and severing one of its heads. However, in the next moment, she was struck from behind and coughed up blood. In mere seconds, her body was marked by deep gashes on her thigh, back, and arm. The pain caused her to fall to her knees, coughing incessantly. Seeing the exact same level 7 two-headed shadow leopard, although this one was a bit smaller, she had never anticipated that there was another level 7 beast lurking nearby. Emerging from the darkness, one of them began drooling as if anticipating its meal, and slowly approached her from behind. Meanwhile, the leopard's head that was sliced off on the ground began to levitate, and soon the head flew back to its body, slowly reattaching itself. She leaned on her axe, struggling to stand up, watching as two beasts charged at her. She closed her eyes slowly and was ready to accept her fate. As the soldiers in the trench prepared to rush out to save her, she seemed to glimpse something. Suddenly, a whooshing sound approached from the distance. A figure descended from the sky, his spear blazing with flames, piercing through the bodies of the two level 7 beasts in an instant. Lu Sheng landed gently on the ground, taking a deep breath, relieved to have arrived in time. Suddenly, one of the beast's tails unfolded like a sharp claw aiming for Lu Sheng's back. The woman shouted a warning, but Lu Sheng ignored the tail and placed one of his foot on the beast's head. Looking at Lu Sheng and sensing the powerful aura emanating from him, the beast halted its movements, its tail also dropping slowly. Seeing the beast now behaving like a tiny kitten, Lu Sheng nodded in satisfaction and patted the leopard's head with a smile, while murmuring to himself, "The meat of a level 7 beast is quite good. It's a shame to ruin it." The beast looked confused, but perhaps thought he was in safe hands. However, in the next moment, Lu Sheng pressed his thumb against his middle finger, radiating a golden aura around him. He unleashed his stellar force while flicking his finger sharply on the leopard's head, the immense force shattering the nearby ground. The woman watched, dumbfounded, and she was not alone. Everyone looked at Lu Sheng, completely speechless. Lu Sheng then grabbed the beast's tail, tightly binding it before sprinting towards the remaining beasts, slamming his long spear into the ground as flames erupted from his body. His spear, blazing through the night, easily dispatched multiple beasts with each thrust. Not even the level 7s could withstand his might. Watching Lu Sheng, the woman muttered to herself, "What in the hell? Just where did this guy come from?" Similar scenes played out along various front lines. Lu Sheng made a full round of the battlefield that night, killing so many beasts that even he lost count. But one thing was for sure, Lu Sheng had left an indelible impression and surely made a name for himself on the entire front line. It wasn't until that last beast fell under his spear that he returned to the camp. Meanwhile, back in the base, upon receiving a call, General Yu almost choked on his water as he listened incredulously to the frontline reports. Just then, Lu Sheng entered his tent. After a night of slaughter, his clothes were considerably tattered. The cup slipped from his hands as General Yu stood up in shock, hastily asking Lu Sheng how many beasts he had killed today. Nonchalantly opening a bottle of water and drinking it all in one gulp, Lu Sheng replied, 12? 18? He couldn't even recall how many level 7 beasts he had slain, not to mention the level 6 and lower ones he didn't bother to count. Regrettably, he couldn't bring back the bodies, as hauling a bunch of beast corpses was too cumbersome and could delay him from saving more young soldiers' lives. To him, that's the only little thing he could really do for now. General Yu remained silent for a long time. He wasn't sure if Lu Sheng was trying to show off or if he actually thought this way. Either way, General Yu informed him that the battle lines were recorded by drones, and his contribution would be accurately tallied and recognized. Hearing this, Lu Sheng nodded in satisfaction. That was certainly the best outcome. With more of a serious look, the general reminded him that while assisting other lines was commendable, he was still a part of the 1182 Division, and hoped Lu Sheng would prioritize their needs. Lu Sheng assured him that he would get rid of the beast nearby before venturing out, and if the general was worried, he could provide a communication device for immediate contact when needed. Unsure of what to say next, General Yu just coughed lightly and nodded. In his heart, he reminisced about his decision not long ago to continuously dump expensive beast's marrow into Lu Sheng's growth chamber. End of the day, who could have imagined that the boy would achieve so much today? Meanwhile, in the conference hall, the big screen displayed the casualties of the recent uprising in Cavern Number 2. After receiving the accurate numbers, a man stood up and addressed the marshal, stating that the breakout this time was severe. As of today, the casualties among ordinary soldiers totaled 15,200. When mentioning the losses among the officers, he closed his eyes, tears welling up, and continued with a heavy heart that there were 320 officer casualties, 8 7th-level general stars, and 1 8th-level general star. The entire hall fell silent, all eyes turning to the man sitting in the very front. It was an elderly man with countless scars across his face. He remained silent, staring at the numbers. Upon hearing there was also an 8th-level general star casualty, he wanted to know who it was. Turned out, the fallen 8th level was Zheng Wei, a great grandmaster ranked 28th on the general star rankings. The marshal sighed deeply and announced that the funeral for General Zheng would be held with the highest military honors, and he would personally attend. Standing up wearily, he sighed again, reflecting on the grave losses. With the military totaling only 30 great grandmasters, the loss of even one was significant, not to mention the 15,000 soldiers and officer casualties. Regaining his composure, he asked for an update on the newly emerged cavern. The reporter pressed a remote control, and the giant projection screen switched to a 3D map of the area. All eyes in the room focused on this central image. The current situation is not looking good. Countless beasts continued to attack the front lines, and within just a week, there had been 2 breakouts. He believes that without immediate reinforcements, there was a real risk that the entire front line could be overwhelmed.